What if you could become a millionaire overnight by buying dinner for two strangers? This is Darius Johnson, who is 17 years old and works as a dishwasher for $8 an hour. He's going to make a decision tonight that will change everything. The old white couple at table 6 was looking frantic as they dug through their empty pockets. They are meant to be here and are worth more money than most people see in 10 lives. As Darius walks up with his own food, which he had saved for 3 days, he has no idea that he is about to take a test. The old man's sharp blue eyes aren't just thankful, they're also planning. Documents that will soon have Darius's name on them are in the woman's leather folder. Which brings me to the amazing part of this story. This is all new to Darius. He only sees two people who need help, which is exactly what they want. One act of kindness can turn two people into millionaires, which is an amazing prize. But let me go back to the start of this whole thing. In order to fully grasp why the next event is so remarkable, you must first learn about Darius's past. 30 a.m. The alarm clock next to Darius's bed no longer works in the morning. His body wakes up on its own. He gets out of the small twin bed that he has been sleeping in since he was 8 years old, the bed his mom bought him before the accident. As he sneaks past his grandmother's room on tiptoe, the floors creak. Miss Ruby is awake already. She's always awake at this time, but she acts like she's sleeping because she knows Darius worries about her. He can hear her breathe through the thin wall. How hard it is for her even when she's lying down. Their Elm Street home has its own story to tell. The paint that used to be yellow is now the color of old newspapers. The porch steps are sagging in the middle from being used for many years. They use duct tape to keep the windows shut because they don't have the money to buy new ones. But Miss Ruby makes sure it's clean, like really clean. She always tells him that being poor doesn't mean being proud. He puts on the same jeans that he wore yesterday. Looks in his pocket for his bus fare, $347. Not enough to get back, but enough to get to work. It's okay that he has to walk home tonight, 3 miles. He walked further for less money. On his way to Murphy's Diner, he walks through different areas, past nice homes with well-kept lawns and cars and driveways, and past his friend Jerome's apartment complex, where the parking lot is full of holes and broken dreams, past the empty shopping center where older kids smoke and make plans for the future that most likely won't come true. The corner of 5th and Main is where Murphy's Diner is. Its neon lights stand out in the dark before dawn. Big Mike is there already getting ready for the morning rush. That's all he does. Not rude, just busy. They don't talk much, but they treat each other with care. Mike knows that Darius always comes to work, works harder than people twice his age, and never moans. Darius's hands move in the kitchen in ways that are familiar. Stack of plates, hot boiling water, scrub, rinse, dry, and do it again. His hands are rough now because he has done this every day for months. He thinks that college hands might look different every once in a while. A little softer. You know, hands that hold books instead of dish towels. There is a small window next to the sink that looks out onto the parking lot. As Darius works, he sees people come and go. Families going to work and school. A group of construction workers getting coffee before going to work. Business guys in suits on the phone. Everything about their lives he can only guess. His shift finishes at 7:15. Now it's time for the real test. School. On the east side of town, Roosevelt High School is small and looks like an old brick house. The building needs paint. Half of the lockers don't work and the computers are very old. But Darius changes inside these walls. He's not the kid who cleans up here. He's the kid who gets all A's and helps other kids with their work during lunch. His English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, is the first person to notice him. "Darius, you're very good at writing." One afternoon, she tells him, "Have you thought about going to college?" College? He doesn't know how to say that word. He kind of kid doesn't go to college. If they're lucky, kids like him get work right after high school. On the other hand, Mrs. Patterson sees something different. She starts giving him scholarship forms, application packets, and brochures with pictures of school quads and library towers. Darius tells her in a low voice, "I can't afford it." She says maybe not today. But dreams can come true if the person who has them deserves it. At lunch, while other kids get hot meals from the restaurant, Darius eats peanut butter sandwiches and reads about business programs, state universities, and a community college. The amounts are mind-blowing. It would take everything Miss Ruby has and more, even if she got money to help. The cycle keeps going after school, more cleaning up at Murphy's. Every family is there in the evening to celebrate small wins. There are couples on dates, and there are older people who eat as long as they can to avoid feeling lonely. They are all watched by Darius. He pays attention. The way the woman at table 3 carefully counts her money. The way the businessman behind the bar leaves big tips at night when the waitstaff looks tired. The way that small acts of kindness and quiet time spread kindness through the diner. Miss Ruby waits at home in her chair while an oxygen tank hums quietly next to her. Her age is 73, but she looks older. High blood pressure, diabetes, and arthritis. Even though her body is giving out, her heart stays strong. "How was your day, sweetheart?" Every night she asks the same thing. "Okay, Grandma, yours? Are you feeling better now that you're home?" The pills she can barely afford are not talked about. But they don't talk about the times she hasn't been to the doctor. They don't talk about the college applications that he has hidden in his bag. Some talks are too heavy for the evening light. They watch the news together instead. They read stories about other people's happy and sad events and lives that seem to take place in a different world than their own. Tonight is different, though. Darius will decide tonight what to do that will change everything. He only doesn't understand it yet. Plus, he hasn't known that someone has been watching him for 3 days and asking him about the young man who helps his elderly neighbors with their food, gives up his bus fare to make sure Miss Ruby has money for lunch, and helps kids learn at the library for free. Someone who is about to test that person's character to the fullest. When it rains in November in this part of town, it hits hard. Tonight, it hits Murphy's diner windows like bullets, and the parking lot turns into a battleground with puddles and fast-moving water. Darius scrapes the last table of the evening shift. He is excited and his stomach hurts. Every penny he has had for 3 days has been saved for this moment. Instead of taking the bus home and back, you have to walk. You can't have snacks after school or soda with lunch, all just so he could buy his own food and sit down like a customer instead of working behind the scenes. The burger and fries at the pickup station are more than just food. They stand for choice. At last, Darius doesn't have to settle for whatever's cheaper when it comes to what he eats. He starts to reach for his tray, but something stops him. 6th table. The corner seat is usually only used by couples on dates or families having a birthday party. Tonight, it's holding 2 people who don't seem to belong there at all. An old white couple who were both soaked through. The woman's silver hair slowly falls onto her high-end coat. Darius can tell that the coat cost more than he makes in a month, even though it's wet. Even though he is old, her husband sits up straight as a board. But his expensive suit sticks to him like wet newspaper. They asked for coffee. Not a thing else, only coffee. And they've had those 2 cups for more than an hour. From behind the bar, Darius sees the woman open her purse a 4th time. With each search, she moves faster and faster. She drops the tissues, reading glasses, and breath mints on the table, but there is no wallet, no money clip, and nothing else. She tells her husband in a whisper something important. He checks the pockets of his coat, then his pants, and finally his coat again. Just the way he shakes his head tells you what's going on. The woman says, "I don't understand," out loud enough for Darius to hear. The woman says, "I had it when we left the house." The man replies, "I'm sure I had it." He then desperately checks his pockets again. He takes out an old gold pocket watch and looks at it as if money were going to come out of nowhere behind its face. Nothing. Sandy, the evening waiter, walks up to their table slowly and unwillingly. She has worked here long enough to know what the signs mean. Good people in a bad position, something that hurts your heart but doesn't pay the bills. "I'm sorry to bother you, but she has the check between her 2 fingers like it could bite her." The woman's face falls apart. "We feel so bad about it. It looks like we lost our cash. I'm not sure how. We have never seen this happen before." From bits and pieces of what they said, Darius puts together their story. 2 miles from the nearest exit, their Mercedes broke down on the highway. They walked through the storm to get help and used the payphone at the diner to call their son. The payphone, on the other hand, is broken and only holds together with electrical tape and prayers. The man's voice has decades of power even when he is lost. It might be a good idea to leave something as security. "This is my watch, and this is some important paper that my wife has." To be polite, Sandy interrupts, but Mike has a strict rule, not an exception. Big Mike walks out of the kitchen with his arms crossed over his chest.
He is not mean.
He is just realistic. The diner has very small profit margins. Free meals are not possible, not even for old couples in dire need. The doors will stay open if he doesn't do that. He says, "Look, folks," but his voice is softer than his face. The man quickly gets up from the booth and says, "I wish I could help, but we understand." "Come on, Margaret. Let's figure it out." Margaret holds a worn-out leather notebook like a shield to her chest. As she stands there, Darius gets a quick glimpse of what's inside. He sees papers that look official, some kind of award, and something with a gold logo that he thinks he has seen before but can't remember where. The pair walks toward the door with their pride hurt but their dignity still intact. The storm outside is getting worse again. Lightning lights up the empty parking lot where their broken-down luxury car is waiting, making it look like an island that has been left behind. Sandy whispers as she looks out the window. They can't go back out in that. Not when they are that old. Not with this weather. But Mike has already turned around and gone back to his kitchen. It's time to get back to work on staying alive. Darius looks at the bar where his food is still not eaten. It's still warm out there. The fries are still nice and crunchy. As payment for 3 days of service, two people who had clearly lived very different lives were made to sit and be ashamed. He knows when the old couple gets to the door. When Margaret turns away from the warm diner they're leaving for the cold, wet night, the man's hand is already on the door handle. Then Darius decides what to do. However, he doesn't know and can't know that this moment has been planned for 3 days, that the broken-down Mercedes in the parking lot was put there on purpose, that Margaret's coat pocket is a safe place for the lost cash. Harold's old watch has a secret section that holds more money than Darius makes in a year. The most important test of his life is about to happen, but it looks like an easy act of kindness. That's all Darius thinks. He only moves. His meal is still warm on the counter, ready to be eaten. It represents 3 days of careful sacrifice. But as he watches Margaret's shoulders slump as she looks out at the storm-lashed parking lot, he makes up his mind. "Sandy," he calls out as he quickly walks across the bar. The old couple turns around and says, "Hold up." As it rains, Margaret's eyes turn red around the edges. Darius isn't sure if she is embarrassed or just cold. It's like Harold is seeing Darius for the very first time because his pale blue eyes are fixed on him. "Folks," Darius says as he walks up to their table with his tray still empty. "I say, this one's on me tonight." Silence. Margaret blinks quickly. "Oh, sweetheart, that's very kind, but we couldn't possibly. Please." Darius sets the burger and fries in front of them, then slides into the booth without invitation. My grandmother always says kindness is the only thing that multiplies when you give it away. Harold's gaze never waver from Darius's face. Something flickers behind those pale eyes. Calculation, recognition, but his voice remains steady, dignified. "Son, this is your meal. You worked for this, and I can work for another one." Darius flags Sandy down. "Can you bring them some fresh coffee and maybe see if Big Mike will let you use the kitchen phone to call about their car?" Sandy nods, understanding immediately. Pete's garage is still open. He does emergency towing. As Sandy bustles away, Darius turns back to the couple. "I'm Darius, by the way. Darius Johnson Harold," the man says, extending a hand that feels surprisingly strong for his age. "And this is my wife, Margaret." Margaret's hands shake as she reaches for a French fry, and Darius pretends not to notice. "We haven't eaten since breakfast," she admits quietly. "Our car broke down on Route 47 and we walked here in the rain. We thought we had our wallet, but she trails off embarrassed." "Cars break down," Darius says simply. "Happens to everyone." Harold studies him with those penetrating blue eyes. "You work here after school and weekends saving for college. What do you want to study?" "Business administration. Maybe something that could help my community." Darius shrugs, suddenly self-conscious. "Sounds silly, probably. Not silly at all." Harold's voice carries an authority that seems at odds with his current situation. "Tell me about your community." It's an odd question from a stranded traveler, but Darius finds himself answering anyway. "Roosevelt High needs better computers. The neighborhood could use a medical clinic. People have to travel across town for basic care, and there's this old shopping mall that's been abandoned for years, prime real estate just sitting empty." Margaret and Harold exchange a glance. She clutches her leather portfolio tighter against her chest, and again Darius catches a glimpse of that embossed gold logo. Something about it tugs at his memory, but he can't place it. Sandy returns with the coffee and news. Pete's on his way. "I should be here in 20 minutes. "Thank you," Harold says, then turns back to Darius. "What's your last name again?" "Johnson, Darius Johnson." Harold pulls out an expensive business card holder. Real leather gold corners, then pauses. Instead of selecting one of the elegant cards inside, he reaches for a plain napkin and writes carefully on it. "Darius Johnson," Harold repeats as if testing how the name sounds. The question, "and your address?" sounds very official, but Darius gives it anyway. 1427 Elm Street. Margaret points to her portfolio and says something important to her husband. Harold gives Darius a nod and then turns back to him. When Harold says son, his tone changes to sound almost formal. The fact that you gave up your food tonight for people you don't know tells me everything I need to know about you. You can say it's just food, Darius. I didn't need it as much as you did, just food. Harold smiles, but Darius feels like he's missing something important behind the smile. Just show him, Margaret. Margaret thinks for a moment, then opens her folder a little. Inside, Darius sees what look like building plans, official papers and awards with fancy seals. Everything has that one gold mark that he can't quite put his finger on. Margaret says slowly, "We're not just lost travelers. We're here to do business." Important job. Before Darius can ask what kind of business needs design plans, Pete's tow truck pulls into the parking lot. Its headlights shine through the rain, making it easy to see. Harold gets to his full height and stands up. He changes how he looks in the harsh neon light of the diner. The helpless old man is no longer there. Someone else stands in his place who clearly wants to be admired, listened to, and obeyed. Mike. As the mechanic walks in, shaking off the rain on his coat, Harold calls out, "Yes, sir. Will you be the ones in the Mercedes?" "Yes, we are." Harold's voice is clear and serious. "How fast can you get it going?" Pete rubbed his head. "It depends on what's wrong with it, sir. It may need to be towed back to the shop so that it can be checked out." Harold cuts in, "Money is not a problem. It doesn't matter what." Darius looks away. A quarter of an hour ago, this man couldn't buy a coffee. He is now telling a worker that money doesn't matter. As they get ready to leave, Harold stops at the table where Darius is still sitting and thinks about what just happened. "Son," Harold calls out, putting a hard hand on Darius's shoulder, "you've given us something far more valuable than a meal tonight, and I want you to know we don't forget kindness." He slips the napkin with Darius's information into his coat pocket like it's a precious document. Margaret steps forward, still clutching her portfolio. "Darius, what you did tonight means more than you realize, more than you can possibly imagine." "It was just," Darius begins. "It was a character," Harold interrupts. "Pure, unselfish character. The kind that's rarer than diamonds and more valuable than gold." As they head toward the door with Pete, Harold turns back one final time. The storm has passed and streetlights illuminate his profile. For just a moment in that light, he looks familiar. Not like someone Darius has met, but like someone he's seen somewhere before. In a newspaper, maybe, or on television. "We'll be in touch," Harold says, and something in his voice makes it sound less like a polite goodbye and more like a promise. The Mercedes starts on the first try. As the luxury car disappears into the night, Darius sits alone in the empty diner, staring at his reflection in the rain-streaked window. Something extraordinary just happened, but he can't quite put his finger on what. What he doesn't know is that Harold is already on his phone making calls that will change everything. The first call is to his assistant. "Cancel my morning meetings. I need background checks, academic records, and character references for a young man named Darius Johnson." The second call is to his lawyer. "Draft the paperwork we discussed. I think we found our candidate." The third call will happen at exactly 900 a.m. tomorrow morning to the principal of Roosevelt High School. But for now, Darius just sits in the quiet diner, wondering why giving away his dinner feels like the beginning of something much bigger than hunger. The diner feels different after they leave. Quieter, like the air itself is holding its breath. Sandy approaches Darius's table, shaking her head in amazement. "Honey, I've been waitressing for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like that." "Like what?" Darius asks, still staring out the window where the Mercedes disappeared. "You just gave your dinner to complete strangers. Your own meal that you saved 3 days to buy." She slides into the booth across from him. Most people would have looked the other way. Most people aren't raised by Miss Ruby Johnson. Sandy laughs. "That grandmother of yours sure did something right." She pauses, studying his face. "But there was something strange about that couple, don't you think?" Before Darius can answer, Big Mike emerges from the kitchen carrying a fresh plate. Burger, fries, and a slice of apple pie that definitely wasn't part of the original order. "Kid," Mike says, setting the food in front of Darius, "what you did tonight took real heart." Darius looks up surprised. In 6 months of working here, Big Mike has never offered him anything for free. The man runs his diner like a military operation. Every penny accounted for. Every portion measured. "Mr. Mike, I can't accept." "You're not accepting charity." Mike's gruff voice softens slightly. "You're accepting respect. There's a difference, but the cost is mine to worry about." Mike pulls out the chair Sandy vacated and sits down heavily. "You know what I saw tonight? I saw a young man with more class than customers who drive cars worth more than my house. Darius takes a bite of the burger. His first real food in hours. They seemed nice. Just had some bad luck. Bad luck? Mike nods slowly. Funny thing about bad luck, though. Sometimes it reveals good character, and sometimes it reveals something else entirely. What do you mean? Mike stands, adjusting his apron. Nothing, kid. Just eat your dinner. You earned it twice over tonight. As Mike returns to the kitchen, Sandy leans closer. He's right. You know, there was something off about those people. Off how? Well, for starters, Pete said their car started right up once they got to it. No engine trouble at all. Just needed a jump, he said, like the battery had been disconnected on purpose. Darius frowns. That's weird. And another thing. Did you see how that old man pulled out his wallet when Pete asked for payment? A wallet thick enough to choke a horse. Funny how he couldn't find it when it came time to pay for coffee. The observation hits Darius like cold water. Harold had claimed they lost their wallet, but he'd paid Pete without any trouble at all. How do you lose a wallet and find it again in 20 minutes? Maybe it was in the car, Darius suggests weakly. Maybe. Sandy doesn't sound convinced. Or maybe there's more to this story than meets the eye. The walk home takes Darius through neighborhoods that tell the whole story of his town, past the nice houses with their perfect lawns and security systems, past the apartment complexes where families like his make do with less, past the empty lots and boarded-up buildings that speak to dreams deferred. At home, Miss Ruby waits in her recliner, oxygen tank humming softly beside her. The late news flickers on the television, but she's not really watching. Baby, you're later than usual. Is everything all right? Darius tells her about the elderly couple, expecting her usual pride in his kindness. Instead, she listens with growing intensity, asking detailed questions about their appearance, their clothes, their car. Silver hair, you said, and pale blue eyes. Yeah, Grandma, why? Miss Ruby reaches for the television remote and turns up the volume. Sometimes angels come disguised as people in need, testing our hearts. They weren't angels, Grandma. Just people having a hard night. She pats his hand with fingers that feel paper thin. You keep that generous heart, Darius. It's going to take you places you can't even imagine. Places like what? Like wherever good people are supposed to end up. That night, lying in his narrow bed, Darius replays every moment of the encounter. Harold's intense blue eyes. Margaret's mysterious portfolio. The way Harold's entire bearing changed when Pete arrived. The business card holder he never used. The napkin with Darius's information treated like a valuable document. His phone buzzes. A text from Jerome. Heard you bought dinner for some random old folks at Murphy's. Man, you're going to be broke forever helping everybody. Darius smiles in the darkness. Maybe Jerome's right. Maybe kindness is a luxury he can't afford. But tonight, seeing gratitude replace humiliation in two strangers' eyes felt worth more than any meal he'd ever eaten. What Darius doesn't know is that 3 blocks away in the penthouse suite of the Grandview Hotel, Harold and Margaret Whitmore are reviewing a thick folder with his name on the cover. Inside are his academic records, character references from teachers and neighbors, and a detailed report on his family situation, compiled over the past 3 days. Perfect score, Margaret murmurs, scanning the documents. Better than perfect, Harold replies, making notes in the margin. He didn't just pass the test. He exceeded every expectation. Tomorrow morning they'll make the phone call that changes everything. The next morning brings questions that don't have answers. Darius arrives at Murphy's to find Sandy practically vibrating with excitement. That couple from last night. Pete told me something crazy. When he got to their car, there was already someone waiting. A driver in a black suit. What do you mean? Professional guy standing next to a second car. Pete heard the old man talking about foundation protocols and candidate assessment. What kind of stranded folks talk like that? The words hit Darius strangely. Foundation protocols. Candidate assessment. During the first period, Mrs. Patterson pulls him aside. Darius, I received an interesting phone call this morning. Someone asking about your character, your grades, your plans for college. She studies his face. They knew an awful lot about you already. What do you mean? They knew your GPA, your job at Murphy's. Even that you walked Mrs. Carter's groceries home every Tuesday. Her voice drops. They weren't asking if you were a good student. They were asking if you were a good person. At lunch, Jerome finds him in the library, phone in hand. Yo, did you need to see this? He slides his phone across the table. Look at this news article. The headline reads, Whitmore Foundation announces surprise local visit. Darius scans quickly. The Whitmore Foundation, worth $200 million, is conducting community assessments for a major new initiative. Their CEO personally visits potential sites, but Darius has stopped reading. His eyes lock on the foundation's logo, an elegant gold emblem, the same logo he glimpsed in Margaret's leather portfolio last night. Jerome, what does the CEO look like? Don't say. The article mentions he's intensely private and avoids publicity photos. Jerome looks curious. Why? Before Darius can answer, the intercom crackles throughout Roosevelt High. Darius Johnson, please report to the principal's office immediately. In 6 years at Roosevelt High, Darius has never been called to the principal's office. Not once. As he walks through hallways, students stare and whisper. Teachers pause to watch him pass. Through the glass windows of the main office, Darius sees Principal Martinez talking to two figures seated across from his desk. An elderly white couple in expensive clothes, Harold and Margaret. But they're not the desperate travelers from last night. Harold's posture commands attention. Margaret's designer coat is immaculate, and spread across the principal's desk are official documents bearing the same gold logo Darius just saw in the newspaper. His legs feel unsteady as the secretary opens the door. Mr. Johnson, they're waiting for you. The moment Darius steps into Principal Martinez's office, the world tilts sideways. Harold stands up. Not the frail, stranded elderly man from Murphy's diner, but someone who commands rooms with his presence. His expensive suit is immaculate. His pale blue eyes hold the sharp focus of a man accustomed to making million-dollar decisions. Hello again, son. Darius's mouth goes dry. You're Harold Whitmore. I am. Harold's smile is warm but calculating. And last night you bought dinner for one of the most powerful philanthropists in the state. The question is why? The room spins. Darius grips the back of a chair to steady himself. You needed help. It didn't matter who you were. Exactly. Margaret speaks for the first time, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to boardrooms and million-dollar budgets. Harold, show him. Principal Martinez, who's been silent until now, slides a thick folder across his desk. Darius's school photo is paperclip-ipped to the cover along with his full name in bold letters. Darius Johnson, Candidate Assessment. We've been researching you for the past 72 hours, Harold explains, opening the folder to reveal page after page of documentation, academic transcripts, work evaluations from Big Mike, character references from teachers, even photographs of Darius helping elderly neighbors with groceries. Darius stares at the papers, his mind struggling to process what he's seeing. You've been watching me. We've been evaluating you, Margaret corrects gently. The Whitmore Foundation is launching our most ambitious project ever, a comprehensive community development initiative. We need someone local, someone who understands real hardship but maintains hope, someone whose character we can trust. Absolutely, Harold adds, turning pages in the folder. Straight A's despite working 20 hours a week. Teachers describe you as remarkably mature and genuinely compassionate. Your boss says you're the most reliable employee he's ever had. Mrs. Carter from the corner store mentions you help with her inventory every week without being asked. Margaret continues, reading from a typed report. Mrs. Williams says you shovel her walkway every winter and refuse payment. The librarian notes you tutor struggling students during your lunch breaks. Darius feels like he's watching this happen to someone else. I don't understand. You were testing me. Harold closes the folder and looks directly into Darius's eyes. Last night wasn't an accident. We've been in town for 3 days asking questions, observing. Your name came up repeatedly as someone who embodies the values we're looking for. So the broken-down car staged. Harold's tone is matter of fact. We needed to create a situation where you could choose kindness or indifference, where the choice would cost you something you valued. The lost wallet. Margaret pats her coat pocket. Safe and sound the entire time. The betrayal hits him like a physical blow. You lied to me. We created a scenario. Harold corrects. There's a difference. What we wanted to see was authentic. How you'd respond when you thought no one was watching. When there was nothing in it for you. Principal Martinez leans forward. Darius, they're offering you opportunities that could change your life. What kind of opportunities? Darius asks, though part of him isn't sure he wants to hear the answer. Margaret opens her leather portfolio, the same one she clutched so protectively last night, revealing documents that make Darius's breath catch. University logos, legal letterhead, financial statements with numbers that have too many zeros. A full scholarship to any accredited university you choose, Harold begins, his voice taking on the tone of a business presentation. Tuition, room, board, books, living expenses. 4 years completely covered. During summers and school breaks, you'll intern directly with our foundation. Margaret continues. Learning nonprofit management, community development, social enterprise, and after graduation, Harold smiles. You'll return here as assistant director of our newest community development center. 2 years of training with our established team. Then if both parties agree, you become director. Darius looks around the room, half expecting to wake up from an impossible dream. You want me to run a community center? We want you to help us build one first. Harold spreads architectural blueprints across the principal's desk. Detailed plans for a gleaming facility that looks like something from a magazine. Margaret points to elegant lettering across the building's facade. The Darius Johnson Community Development Center. You want to name it after me? Darius's voice comes out as a whisper. We want you to be its founding director, Harold clarifies. This represents a $25 million investment in your community. But we don't just write checks and disappear. We partner with local leaders who share our vision. The numbers are impossible. 25 million. More money than everyone on Elm Street has seen combined. More money than Darius thought existed outside of movies and lottery commercials. Why me? He asks, though he's beginning to understand. Because transformation has to come from within, Margaret explains. We can build buildings, fund programs, and hire staff. But authentic change requires someone who genuinely loves their community, despite its problems. Harold nods. Someone who sees potential instead of just poverty. Someone who gives away their last meal to strangers because it's the right thing to do. Principal Martinez speaks up. Darius, in 30 years of education, I've never seen an opportunity like this. But Darius is still processing the deception. The whole thing was fake. Your car, your situation, your desperation, all of it. The test was real, Harold says firmly. Your response was real. Your character was real. Those are the only things that matter. We've funded hundreds of projects, Margaret adds. But we've never offered full partnership to someone your age. You'd be the youngest director in our foundation's history. Harold pulls out his real business card. This time heavy cardstock with the gold logo embossed in the corner. Take 2 weeks to think about it. Visit our other community centers. Talk to people whose lives we've changed together. Make sure this aligns with your own vision. As he hands Darius the card, Harold's expression softens. And son, regardless of what you decide about the center, your college tuition is covered. What you did last night, giving something precious to strangers, deserves recognition no matter what. Darius stares at the business card, at the blueprints, at the impossible opportunity spread across the principal's desk. There's just one condition, Margaret says, her voice serious. You can't do this for the money or recognition. You have to genuinely want to serve your community, because that's the only way it works. Outside the principal's office, students are changing classes, moving through their ordinary day while Darius sits in a room where his entire future is being rewritten. But the biggest shock is still coming when he realizes this isn't just about him. It's about everyone he's ever tried to help, everyone he's ever dreamed of lifting up, everyone who's ever believed that kindness matters even when no one is watching. This is about proving that sometimes, just sometimes, good people really do win. The blueprints spread across Principal Martinez's desk look like something from a different world. A world where dreams have architectural plans and hope comes with construction timelines. Harold traces his finger along the building's outline. The Darius Johnson Community Development Center will sit on 15 acres where the old Riverside Mall currently stands. We've already secured the land. Darius blinks. The abandoned mall? But that's been empty for years. Prime real estate, Margaret confirms, opening another folder. Perfect location, excellent transportation access, and large enough for everything your community needs. The detailed plans are breathtaking. A state-of-the-art medical clinic with examination rooms and a pharmacy. Computer labs equipped with the latest technology. Job training facilities with equipment for everything from automotive repair to culinary arts. A library with study spaces and meeting rooms. Even a commercial kitchen for community meals and catering training. This level represents healthcare services, Harold explains, pointing to the first floor. Full medical and dental clinics staffed by professionals but affordable for everyone. We're talking about routine care, chronic disease management, and preventive medicine. The second floor focuses on education and job training, Margaret continues. Computer literacy, GED preparation, vocational certification programs. We want to give people skills that lead to real employment. Darius studies the plans, his mind racing. You're talking about everything this community has needed for decades. Exactly. Harold's eyes light up. But here's what makes this different from typical charity work. This isn't about us coming in and fixing things. This is about partnership. We provide resources. You provide local knowledge and leadership. Principal Martinez leans forward. Darius, the economic impact alone would be transformational. Construction jobs, permanent employment, increased property values, new businesses attracted to the area. Margaret opens her leather portfolio again, revealing financial projections that make Darius's head spin. We're projecting initial construction costs of $15 million plus a $10 million endowment for operations. But the real value comes from what happens next. What do you mean, what? Harold slides another document across the desk. Conservative estimates suggest this center will serve over 3,000 people annually. Medical clinic visits, educational programs, job placements, community events. We're talking about touching virtually every family in this area. The numbers are staggering. But what hits Darius hardest is seeing his neighborhood's problems laid out in official documents with real solutions attached. Roosevelt High's computer lab hasn't been updated in 8 years. Margaret reads from her notes. 41% of adults in this zip code lack basic digital literacy. The nearest medical clinic is 12 mi away, creating transportation barriers for elderly and low-income residents. We know, Harold adds, because we spent 6 months studying this area before we ever set foot in Murphy's Diner. 63% of children live below the poverty line. But we also found something else. He turns to a page filled with interview transcripts. Darius recognizes names, neighbors, teachers, local business owners. Page after page of people mentioning his name. They talk about the young man who helps with groceries. Margaret reads, who tutors kids at the library, who shows up at community meetings with ideas and optimism, who treats everyone with respect regardless of their circumstances. Harold says, you're already a leader in the community. We're just giving you tools to make your impact bigger. Darius looks at the salary numbers and almost falls off his chair. More money than Miss Ruby has ever seen in her life. Enough to pay for her medical care, fix up their house, and change not only his life but also hers. Margaret says in a serious voice, there's one very important condition. You can't do this for the money or the praise. When this stops being about helping the community and starts being about getting something for yourself, it stops working. How do you know I won't change? He asked Darius. How do you know that my success won't make me bad? Harold gives a smile. Because you let strangers eat your dinner yesterday, not because you had to. It's not because someone saw, since it was the right thing to do. That kind of deep character doesn't change when things happen. Margaret also says that it gets stronger as it gets more supplies. Martinez, the principal, speaks up. I've been watching you for 4 years, Darius. You're the same kid whether you're cooking or helping kids with their homework in the library, whether you have cash on hand or have to walk home in the rain because you spent all your bus fare on someone else. Harold pulls out a thick paper. This is what we're suggesting in clear language. You can go to any recognized college or university and choose any major you want. You will work directly with our foundation team at centers that are already open in Chicago, Atlanta, and Denver during the summer breaks. Margaret goes on, you'll learn how to write grants, make programs, reach out to the community, and manage money. All the things you need to run a big nonprofit. After you graduate, you'll come back here as an assistant director and work for 2 years with our current team. Then if everyone agrees, you become head and have full control over how things run. There are details in the contract that make this seem suddenly impossible to be true. As an assistant director, your starting pay will be $65,000 per year. Director salary, $90,000 plus bonuses for good work. Benefits for healthcare, planning for retirement, and a budget for professional growth. A neighborhood advisory board is another idea we have. Harold says, local residents who help shape programming and make sure we're meeting real needs. This isn't about imposing outside solutions. It's about amplifying local wisdom with the right resources. Darius thinks about Miss Ruby's medical bills, Roosevelt High's old computers, and the empty storefronts on Elm Street that could be businesses that are doing well. He asks in a low voice, what if I'm not ready? What if I fail? Then you'll have failed while trying to help your community. Margaret responds, that's not failure. That's heroism. Harold leans back in his chair. Son, we've funded hundreds of projects over 20 years. We know potential when we see it. You have something most people never develop, the ability to see what could be instead of just what is. Plus, Margaret adds with a smile, you'll have the full backing of a $200 million foundation. You won't be doing this alone, Harold tells him gently. Take your time and visit our other centers. Darius looks at the papers, the blueprints, and the impossible chance that's in front of him. Everything he's ever dreamed of for his community. Drawn out in exact architectural detail and backed by more resources than he ever thought possible. Talk to leaders who have been where you are now. Check that this feels good. But Darius knows the answer deep down. It's not a question of whether he wants this chance. He should be brave enough to think he deserves it. After 18 months, the change is nothing short of amazing. The Darius Johnson Community Development Center stands tall where the empty Riverside Mall used to be. It's like a symbol of hope. Glass walls let morning light shine through. Modern buildings fit in with the style of the area, and people move around with purpose everywhere. Darius, who is now 20 years old and a junior at State University studying nonprofit management, is in charge of getting the cent ready for its grand opening over the winter break. He looks a little bigger and more sure of himself, but the kindness in his eyes that caught Harold's eye is still there. When the medical center opened 6 months ago, it changed everything right away. Dr. Sarah Martinez has seen more than 800 people so far, and Miss Ruby is one of them. Her diabetes was under control, and physical therapy helped her deal with her pain. She no longer needed her oxygen tank. "Baby," Miss Ruby says as they sit on their new porch. "Do you see that sign? The huge sign says, Darius Johnson Community Development Center. Changing our lives together." Darius says it still sounds like someone else's name. It's the name of the man you turned into when you picked kindness over ease. The computer lab inside the center is always busy. 30 people learn skills that will help them get jobs. Mrs. Carter learns that she is good at keeping track of digital supplies. Jerome's mom starts taking classes in graphic design, and within 2 months gets her first independent job. The job training classes are even better than expected. You can get industry-recognized credentials in fields like auto repair, cooking, and healthcare management. In the first year, test results at Roosevelt High School went up 22%. Students now have places to study that are quiet, up-to-date computers, and tutoring programs run by other college students who look like them. The industrial kitchen at the Cent turned into something unexpected. Big Mike hires 6 new people from the job training program to help him grow his food business. Sandy starts her own business, a small cafe in the center. Coverage of local news brings attention to the state. Channel 7 has a show called The Darius Effect, which shows how one center changed the whole neighborhood. As people who learned how to build things fix up abandoned homes on Elm Street, the prices of the homes there go up. The governor comes to cut the ribbon. The Whitmore Foundation approach shows that long-lasting change needs strategic investment and local leadership. We're setting up partnerships like this in 5 more towns. But the real stories aren't loud. Residents over 65 get monthly checkups. Teenagers would rather be in a study group than on the street. When small businesses open, they give people who had given up hope a job. In the first year, crime drops 18%. This isn't because of more security, but because people are busy with other things. Harold and Margaret are always there, but they're always in the background. They let Darius and the community take the lead. In his comments at the ribbon cutting, Darius thanks them, but he also talks about the neighbors who made the dream come true. Because Mrs. Patterson believed in her children, this center is here. Because Miss Ruby taught me that gift giving makes it more powerful when you share it. And because Big Mike was kind to a kid who washed dishes. The cheers can be heard through the glass walls, but Harold is wiping his eyes, which Darius sees. After that, a reporter comes up to Darius. "What's next for the center?" asks the questioner. "Sustainability," replies Darius. Another unusual goal for a nonprofit head is to teach people how to help each other, instead of just giving services. In 5 years, this community won't need us anymore. They'll be helping other communities instead. The point was never to make people dependent. It was meant to build capacity. There's a change. That change is clear now, 6 months after the store opened. With the Cent's help, 43 new jobs have been created, 12 small businesses have been started, and 67 people have found full-time work outside of the community. 1 is the most important number, though. There was one act of kindness that led to thousands more. What no one saw coming was what happened next when Darius was put to the test as a leader. It showed that character under stress is the same as character in poverty. After 2 years, Darius, who is now 22 and officially runs the Cent, is in his office reading through grant applications for the new program. His window lets him watch the kids play on the Cent's playground while their parents go to GED classes. The walls of his office tell the story of how things have changed. framed pictures of how the scent was built. The first group of graduates from the cooking school. Ruby Miss cutting the ribbon at the medical clinic's new building.